Well, hello everyone. Stephanie Cox here, the Revolutionary Empath. So I wanted to touch base. First of all, Facebook wouldn't let me title this. So I'll probably go back through and title it later. But it's basically the new era of the empath, right? And I know I talk about this a lot, but my guides always tell me that like 2025 is the new era of the empath. And what does that really look like? If you want to put the new era of the empath into something that's really simple, the new era of the empath is shifting from the old empath traits, the old empath identity, shifting old belief patterns. It's shifting basically like lack of self-love, shifting lack of boundaries, people-pleasing, perfectionism, victim mentality. And those are what I call the 5 old empath identities, right? It's shifting all of that into something that's more empowering. So what do I mean by that? The one most common thing that I hear empaths talk about is how they cannot deal with other people's emotions. This is the most common thing that I've heard from a lot of empaths, which I totally understand because in the beginning of my journey, that's exactly where I was. I mean, I remember going to a Walmart on, it was like Black Friday. It was like, I don't know if it was the eve of Black Friday or Black Friday itself, but I remember going through that store and being so overwhelmed, and I could not for the life of me figure out like what was even happening to me. I could not. And even my husband was like, Stephanie, you are like Jekyll and Hyde. And I've always been like a very grounded person, a very focused individual. And so I think my husband was a little bit confused because normally that's who I am, right? And so going through that experience, I couldn't figure out what was going on. And so the more that my guides started teaching me, though, the more that I started understanding what I was going through. And that was part of it. Like I was picking up on everybody's emotions. And knowing what I know now, I understand that really what I was doing was what happens. I want you to look at it this way with an empath. And again, you'll hear me say this many, many times. When it comes to being an empath, it's not that you're taking on their emotions. There is a reason. Now, this may trigger some of you, and I completely understand coming from that perception because it used to trigger me. But what's really happening is we're allowing that. And we got to figure out why we're allowing it. It's part of that exploration, which reminds me, like, that's what my program's all about. I know I haven't introduced it yet, but that's literally what the program is about. It's about really starting to work on those old identities and starting to shift those so that you can move into the new era of the empath. However that looks like for you. And we go and we use what my guides like to call the 4 transformational tools. So meditation, presence. So using these 4 transformational tools, like I said, meditation, presence, there's also awareness, and there's also exploration. So these are the 4 transformational tools. Now, the 2 that I find the most beneficial, I mean, presence has been beneficial to me. Meditation has been super beneficial to me. But I have found that awareness is so key to how we can start shifting, because if we're avoiding ourselves, which is what many empaths do, and this, I mean, it's not even empaths, like many people, period, actually will avoid themselves. They avoid looking at their emotions. That's not helping, folks. It's not helping. If you're avoiding, you're not growing. That's the reality of it, right? So, that's a part of it. Becoming aware of what you're really having emotions about, the thoughts that you're having, the behaviors that you're having, and really starting to explore them. Where did they come from? All of these things, right? Really starting to explore them. And when that's the 4th tool, right? So when you start exploring them, you kind of start becoming more like BFFs with them, and you really start understanding more that they're more your teachers rather than your enemy, right? And so that's really what's important, and that's what we go through in the Empath's Guide to Inner Peace. So if you would like to explore these things, again, this program is not for those people who do not want to explore themselves. It is literally for those people who are just downright tired of being the way that they are. They're tired of things turning out the way that they're turning out. They're tired of experiencing the same shit over and over and over again because they can't figure out why the hell they're even drawing it to themselves to begin with. The Empath's Guide to Inner Peace, that's what it helps you do. It starts helping you become aware, and it starts helping you really start exploring the crap that you're keeping inside, the stuff that you just keep shoving down. And like my guide wants me to talk about, like medical disorders and diseases, right? When we're looking at that stuff, the thing is you've pushed down emotions for so long, all of these belief structures, emotions, thoughts, all these things, you've pushed them down. Okay, there's only so much that your physical body can hold energetically. There's only so much, right? Especially with all these heavy, dense emotions, right? So like guilt and shame and, when we experience things like anxiety and depression, then it starts showing up as a physical symptom, and the physical symptom could be a dis-ease or a disorder. And so that's where that actually comes from. So I'm actually excited for the day when our Western medicine meets energetic medicine, because there's things happening under the surface that people are not exploring. And a lot of times what's happening is we're just kind of putting a Band-Aid on it. We're not actually looking at what's going on. So, but everything happens exactly as it's meant to happen. So that's the whole point behind the Empath's Guide to Inner Peace, because you cannot have inner peace when you are not at peace with yourself. You just cannot. When you're avoiding yourself, you're not going to have inner peace. When you're not wanting to really explore yourself, you're not going to have inner peace. When you're really not wanting to become friends with your emotions and understand your thoughts and your behaviors without judging yourself, you're not going to have inner peace. You're also not going to love yourself, because it's only through this exploration without judgment that you start accepting all the bits and pieces of yourself. And that's what true self-love really is. And so I know that self-love is this huge topic. It's a huge topic, but that's really what it's about. You accepting all of who you are without judgment, right? And that's what we would call unconditional love. When you're judging yourself constantly, you're putting conditions on yourself constantly. When you have expectations of yourself constantly, you're putting conditions on yourself constantly. That's not unconditional love, right? When you're not able to explore yourself and just explore yourself for the discovery of it, for the adventure of it, that's not self-love. I mean, you can't explore yourself if you can't connect with yourself, if you can't do anything with yourself. That's not self-love. Here's the other kicker to that. If you cannot connect with yourself, it makes it more difficult, more challenging, I'll say, to connect with other people. So I have found through the exploration of myself that the more that I understand myself, the more that I understand the relationships that are in my life. And it has been such a beautiful journey. And I realized that life really has this beautiful orchestra to it if we're just willing to stop and listen. So now, if you are ready to start exploring these things, put a message down below. And we can talk about the Empath's Guide to Inner Peace, because right now I'm offering it for $50 a month. Okay. Plus you get, and that's where you start exploring and you start becoming more aware of yourself, right? That's the whole point of that program. And through that exploration, through that awareness is where self-love can actually start blossoming if you allow it to, right? And then with this program, you get 2 programs for the price of 1. So I'm also adding the Mindset Bootcamp for Empaths. That's where you explore what my guides like to call the 5 old identities. So lack of self-love, lack of boundaries, people-pleasing, perfectionism, victim mentality. And I get it, okay, because these things were all things that my guides had me explore. And I'm not going to lie. I used to look at them and say, I don't have perfectionism. I don't have victim mentality. And they would say, yes, you do. And until I was actually able to admit it, I couldn't shift it. You cannot change what you are not willing to admit. It comes along with that avoidance, right? You can't grow, you can't transform, you can't change unless you're able to really start looking at yourself instead of avoiding yourself. So If you have questions about this video, please put those questions down below and I will answer them to the best of my ability. And if you would like to talk about popping into the program, please let me know. Message me down below and I will hook up. Usually it'll be like, if you're within the US, usually like a phone call or a Zoom call or something like that. Anybody outside of the US is just a Zoom call. So then we can chat about like what are your struggles? Is this program going to be a good fit for you? We can chat about it and I can tell you what the structure looks like. Now I will tell you in the program what we do is we do 2 live Zooms every single month. It's a group Zoom. So 2 live Zooms every month. You also have free access to the Facebook group and free access to the platform. Basically, your textbook. It is an electronic platform where you get all the information for the class. What's beautiful about this program, and this is my favorite part, is, you know, beyond the Zoom classes, I allow people to put questions on the group page. And if they're going through something that they don't understand, I can help support them. Aside from the Zoom classes. And even if they have something private, if they're really just experiencing something private, I allow them to message me privately. And I feel like this is something like in the beginning of my journey that I really wanted, something that I felt like I really needed, because there were times, folks, where I would experience something, especially when my psychic abilities and my mediumship abilities were opening up and I had nowhere to go. So I literally had to lean on my intuition to guide me through it, and so I totally get it. But I have realized I can't do everything by myself. The more that I started learning about myself, the more that I did hire coaches and teachers and whatnot to start helping me understand everything about my intuition and everything about my mindset. So, again, if you have questions, let me know. I'm sending you all much love, much light. Create an amazing day.